Republican governors, creating a huge shortfall. What would you do to make the pension system whole, and can New Jersey taxpayers afford it?
In my opening statement, I talked about the fact that our government at the top levels has not served the people, and the pension crisis is a key example of that. Democratic and Republican leaders have acted without care for people who have kept their promises, have done their jobs, and have made their payments into the system. That is wrong. And as governor, I'd be prepared. I say that now, and I say that as a person who almost lost a family home because someone made a promise to my family and didn't keep it. And I know I've spoken to people who are relying on pensions, that is a real concern. And I've heard from people who are worried about not being able to retire when they want to retire. So what would we do? We need to get the math right. Our overall budget situation is a mess, and we need to consider raising the estate taxes to make sure that we're adding more revenue. We need to make sure that we are making the payments that we're committed to, but taking a hard look as we have new employees coming on as to whether or not we can afford to make the same pension payments going forward. These are crucial issues, and we can't fail. What I wouldn't do is go in and ask for even more sacrifices from those who have currently paid into the system and are relying on that for their retirement. That's something that's untenable. I would open up the budgeting process so we see where all of the money goes. It has worked in places like Massachusetts, where we know what the budget assumptions are. They do. They have third parties that validate the budget assumptions, and you don't end up at the end of a year the way we seem to do in New Jersey, which is, oops, we don't have the money. That is unfair, it's not right, and as governor, I would not permit it. We should see where the money is going, we should protect those who have been serving us, and we should keep our promises, and I intend to do that.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lesniak, please.
Well, thank you. Certainly no employee, public or private, should have to worry about the integrity of their pensions. I voted against Chapter 78, which made public employees pay more, but allow the state to skip out of its obligations to fully fund the pension. So that obviously has to be a first priority of us. I would bring back the millionaire's tax. We had a millionaire's tax. Our economy was in great shape. There's no reason why we can't have that again. That would bring $1.2 billion back into the system. I also have legislation to close corporate tax loopholes. 40 other states have the same legislation. This legislation would prevent international and interstate companies from moving income generated in New Jersey offshore. That's another $300 million. That will be enough money plus reforms in the budget to secure the pension payments for all of the public employees in the state of New Jersey.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Murphy, please.
We used to be a state that was respected and trusted, and no one knows better than public sector employees that we're no longer trusted. They know it. Rating agencies that have downgraded us 11 straight times know it. Businesses know it. Our kids leave the state in record numbers to go to college and to leave after college. We must stand up for the obligations that the state has agreed to. No more welching on those obligations. And we have to find the money. We have to become a state again that people trust, whether it's the millionaire's tax, closing corporate loopholes, closing this ridiculous carried interest Wall Street loophole, closing the out-of-network health care loophole, which costs individuals and the state a lot of money, getting hedge funds out of the business of managing our pension assets. They charge an arm and a leg. They return nothing at best. Legalization of marijuana, by the way, is a big potential money spinner. We have to find the money. This is a question of trust.
Thank you. Mr. Wisniewski.
1 minute this time.
1 minute, I promise.
All right. So I was in the Assembly in 1996 when Governor Whitman gave a budget address and announced that because our state pensions were funded at 103%, that it would be wrong for the state to continue to fund them. And 20 years later, look at where we're at. The fact of the matter is that public employees have made their contribution every 2 weeks, and the state of New Jersey has welched on its deal. And the state of New Jersey needs to stand up behind its promises. A promise made is a promise kept. But let's talk about where the money comes from. We need to look at the millionaire's tax. That's $1.1 billion. We cut the sales tax 1/8 of a cent. I know you're all very, saving up those eighths of a penny every day. But that's $600 million hit on the budget. We need to look at legalizing marijuana, closing corporate loopholes. That's another $600 million. We have the money that we can raise to make sure we're meeting our obligations and funding our public education that we have an obligation to do. And as governor, I'm committed to doing that.
Thank you very much. And now the next question, we start with